Hey guys, it's Coach Matt with Lifelong Recovery. In this video, I'm going to talk about how your ego could be literally killing you. So when people hear the word ego, a lot of times they think of an overinflated ego. They think of somebody who's arrogant, full of themselves, cocky, that kind of thing. But the reality is that your ego could be out of balance in both directions. So it could be that cockiness, that arrogance, but it also could be this feeling of worthlessness, inferiority, and things like that. And honestly, in recovery, they're both dangerous. So a lot of times with substance abuse, it really distorts our ego. So what tends to happen with continued and frequent substance use is we tend to become hyper focused on our own problems. And like I explained in an earlier video, there's a reason for this. Your addiction wants you, let's say your brain, the addicted brain literally wants you to keep drinking or using. It wants the status quo. So something that tends to happen is it creates more problems than are that actually there in order to get you to keep drinking or using. So when I get addicted, my brain wants to continue using. So I start looking for reasons to drink or use. So I start becoming more pessimistic, more negative typically. And they talk about addiction being a selfish disease. And what they mean by that is you start to become overly consumed by your problems. You start to become hyper focused on yourself. So when we talk about the imbalance of the ego, I like to put it in two different categories. Basically, what happens is you vacillate between this shame and blame. And some people spend more time in one category or the other, but a lot of times they'll jump back and forth. And either way is really dangerous. It can definitely lead to relapse. So the way that shame causes relapse is people typically can't forgive themselves for the past. So they get locked into this cycle. Obviously, with addiction, people tend to do things they're not proud of. They may make risky decisions. They may hurt others. They may cause accidents, neglect people. The list goes on and on of the things that people do as a result of the addiction. So again, a lot of times what happens is people get locked into the shame and they can't forgive themselves. So what happens is they feel pain, they feel remorse, they feel this inferiority, they feel incompetence and self-pity, and then they drink or use to escape those feelings. And by the way, guys, I remember being told that I had a problem with self-pity when I was first trying to recover. And I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't sit around wanting people to feel sorry for me, looking for attention, that kind of thing. But the reality was I had self-pity. I had the wrong definition of self-pity. So if you actually look up the definition of self-pity, it's really just wallowing in your own problems. It's this almost like hyper focus on your own issues. So that to me made a lot of sense. I could really relate to that. They talk about addiction being a selfish disease. And when I look back, it wasn't that I didn't want to care about the people that I loved. It was really this sense of not having the capacity to care about them. I didn't have room in my brain because I was so hyper focused on my own issues and the needing to drink and use and needing to get it and dealing with the consequences and all these things that I really just didn't have the capacity to be there for other people. And so I neglected them. So that's really what they mean by this selfishness. So the other way, how blame causes relapse. So people get into this like kind of, it's like a defense mechanism where they feel that nothing is their fault. They're casting blame to everybody around them because the reality of taking responsibility for their own actions, it's too painful, if that makes sense. It's too much, it's too heavy. So they get really used to just casting blame to everybody around them and everything around them. So it could be institutions, it could be people, it could be legal system, it could be a number of different things. But either way, is an inability to take responsibility for their own actions. A lot of times what happens, you'll see people in relationships where they're both addicted and people will literally say it's you and me against the world. So that's a perfect example of this victim mentality, this feeling of being misunderstood. People just don't understand what I'm going through. People don't understand my problems, that kind of thing. It's really, a lot of it is thinking that you're special, this entitlement, thinking that you're different. And that really goes both ways, honestly, this thinking that you're special. I remember in a group that I was doing in a treatment center, this guy was saying that he was talking about this topic, and he was saying, but I really do feel like I'm a worthless piece of shit. And I asked this guy and I said, what makes you so fucking special? And it's something to hit him between the eyes and bring him back to reality. Is like, you wouldn't tell anybody else that they're a worthless piece of shit, even if they're struggling with the recovery. So what makes you different? Why are you allowed to be this worthless piece of shit and be cursed and have this victim mentality, right? So this is what we're talking about when we're balancing the ego. They call it being right-sized. So not too important, not important enough. So the thing is, a lot of times when people get into this blame category, it's this victim mentality, they create a lot of denial. And what you hear a lot of times, people say, well, if so-and-so just did this, then I wouldn't have to drink or use. If the world wasn't like this, then I wouldn't have to drink or use. And really, that's a cop-out. So what we need to do is be practicing acceptance. And what I really go back to with all this, to me, the solution to this whole thing, to keep yourself out of the shame and blame, is giving yourself grace, but practicing accountability. You probably heard me say that before, but it's really imperative. So the ability to forgive myself, understanding that a large part of my addiction actually has to do with my biology. However, I also need to take accountability for the choices that I've made. I need to take responsibility for myself. And I will tell you guys, walking that tightrope of giving yourself grace and practicing accountability, it's not an easy task. It takes lots of practice and support a lot of times, and directing yourself to get to this healthy place. So guys, I really hope this video helped. Please, when you're trying to recover, focus both on giving yourself grace, being able to forgive yourself, and also taking accountability for your actions. And I think you'll see that it's really helpful. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.